we doing? Oh, have I gone live now? I am. Did that countdown finish? It did finish. Hi, everybody. So I am. My name is Elise Chenier, and I'm a historian at Simon Fraser University, and I'm still trying to figure out this technology. I'm so glad you're here joining us today. I am. How are we doing? Oh, have I gone live? Oh, pardon me. Look at that. I have my sound on other things. There we go. Sorry about that. So, I can't wait till this is over and I can have a helper. I am at Simon Fraser University, which is on the territory of the Tsleil-Waututh, Squamish, and Musqueam people. And I want to tell you about this amazing resource, which I have here in the background for you to see. The website is native-land.ca. And you can go to this website and see whose traditional territory you are currently living on. So it's a really amazing tool, and I encourage all of you to make use of it. If you're tuning in via YouTube, I have getting increasingly organized every week. I have added a link to this website on our YouTube page. Let's see, there were some other things I wanted to say to you. Oh, yes, I know. I wanted to ask you if you could, in the comments, whether you're on Facebook or YouTube, should be able to see if you comment. So I'd like you to say hello and tell us where you are tuning in from. And some of you will know last week I had a contest and we gave away some mugs. Now, for those of you who won those mugs, I still have them, but I have not yet been shopping to buy packaging to send them to you. But that's on my to-do list this week, so you will get them soon. But I have something new to give away this week. This week, our giveaway is this fantastic book, which has, I think, the most beautiful cover. It wins the prize for most beautiful cover, which is a lesbian couple. Canoeing, so very Canadian, huh? And it's called Awfully Devoted Women, Lesbian Lives in Canada, 1900 to 1965. Fantastic book. And not only is it a great book, but I will get it personally autographed for you. And how can I do that magical thing? Because Cameron Duder is my partner. I live with him. So he agreed. While he will never come on a program like this to be interviewed, he did agree that he would gladly sign a copy for whoever wins this week. So thank you, everybody. Tell us where you're, let's see, we've got Debbie is here. And I know you're here, Debbie, but tell us where you're tuning in from, Debbie. This is Bet, who's in Gibsons, which is up on the beautiful Sunshine Coast here in Vancouver. Nix Polaris, who was on the show recently, aka Nancy. She's in East Van, traditional territory of the lesbians, as Cynthia Cole told us in a previous podcast, and to which Nick says, awfully wonderful book, and I have to agree. And Bet says, yes, I want the book. Well, Bet, you may be our lucky winner. We've got Elisa from Surrey, and Luna, who also is in East Van, I know that, trying to convince Luna to come on the show and talk about motherhood. If you would like someone to come in and talk about lesbian motherhood on the show, please say yes, because I'm sure that will help Luna overcome her quote-unquote stage fright, Zoom fright, and join us, because she did some really important work on that front. Okay, let's see. Let's go to the next screen here. All right. So many of you will know that on March 8th, I opened, along with my students, this exhibit, which you see in the video. This is the exhibit in place at the Vancouver City Archives. And, we had like bookings all across Canada. There's the Vancouver Lesbian Mothers Defense Fund. So we had bookings all across Canada Nick says, yes, Luna, come on the show, to show it. And we will still bring it. We will still bring it all across Canada. But we thought that since nobody can really go anywhere just yet, we would bring the show to you. So each week we've been interviewing a different person. So each of these panels is about somebody. Most of the people who participated are local. So I'm based in Burnaby, which is just outside of Vancouver. And it was a project that we undertook in a class that I had last year. And oh goodness, that's not what I want to show here. Yeah, and what I want to show you next is well, I'm going to show you. Here we go. So this is oh, there's Nim. Nim, we can see you now, and there's Nim's banner. This is the one about her, and I should say that each person who participated were interviewed. They were either interviewed by myself, a student, Kirsty, or by students in the course last fall. But I contacted Nim because she had an important piece of the story to contribute. Well, let me just get rid of this little thing here, which is, I can just click on that. Okay. Which is the workshop book that we're going to talk about today. And also she lived on Amazon acres, which came to be known as a kind of women's land, although they didn't set it up as women's land. But I want to, oh yeah. So Nora Randall says, I'll just add this quote here. Nora Randall says, Luna, you should do it. It's fun. I remembered a bunch of things I forgot. So yeah, good. All right. So before I bring you on, is your sound on, Nim? Because I can't hear you. So just have a look. I don't think I've muted you, but I will double check that on my end. No. So let's see. It's probably a problem on my end. Oh, perfect. Your voice just came through now. Good. You were just sitting there so very quietly. Okay. Before I bring you in, Nim, I want to just show everybody. So what I had here is, so bear with me, everybody. Oh, it's disappeared. I just want to show you. So we're going to be talking a lot about this workbook. And I did assign homework to everybody yesterday. So some of you may have already had the chance to see it, which is fantastic. But for those of you who have not yet had a chance, I am going to, okay, just a second here. Google Chrome, that's what we want. Okay, and I'm just going to take this down. Okay, so this is the page where what we've done is we've put the entire exhibit online so you can have a look yourself. And unlike other websites, what you do on this one is you go down to the scroll bar here and you scroll in this direction to see it. And I just want to point this out. I have no idea who these people are, but this is a VW, obviously, that was dressed up for a lesbian pride parade. I don't know. I can't remember the details now, if it was a gay pride parade or whatever. But anyways, in the West End. And I just love this car. And I love this little key that they put on the back of it and all the women's signs. I think it's hilarious. So we had to integrate that into the show when I found it. Okay, so if you scroll this way, so we've had Cindy has been on the show, Nancy, Nora's been on the show. Let's see. And here's Nim. And now we're talking to Nim. So Nim, Yvonne, and Yvette all agreed to give me permission to post the entire workbook online. So if you just click on that, it will download for you. And you just scroll down and you can read the entire thing. And let me tell you, it's amazing. I mean, okay, first of all, not only is it a fantastic workshop, so if you ever think you want to organize a workshop, how to do it well, this is like a beautiful, perfect template for that. But it's also such an incredible historical document of that time. And if you can just tolerate me talking for a moment longer. Okay, I'm going to change the screen here. So there's me. Hi, everybody. Okay. So what I had hoped, and I know those of you who've been here before, you've heard this 100 times, and I apologize, but I just need to, it's all about story, right? So I just need to tell you that what I was interested in with this exhibit was last year, 2019, in Canada, was the 50th anniversary of the partial decriminalization of same-sex sex. And there was tons of media attention and quite a bit of government money thrown at commemorating this. And, I'm a bitter old lesbian feminist. And I thought, yeah, this is such a predominantly white male story. It doesn't have to be, but it tends to get told that way. And indeed, that is the way it was predominantly told. So I thought that this really raised the question of why were more lesbians to be found in the women's movement than in the gay rights movement. And so I created this course for my students last fall to look at just exactly that question. And it was a great course, but because the students, first of all, most of them were straight. And secondly, they knew nothing about this political history. So to be honest, they didn't really delve into what it was like to be a lesbian in the women's movement. And that's what we're going to get into today, because the workbook that Nim's here to tell us about came out of the homophobia within the women's movement. And that was exactly what I was hoping to sort of unpack a little bit, to be able to explain to young people today that it wasn't always, lesbians always weren't. It was a fight even within the women's movement to be accepted as lesbians. So the lesbians were really caught because in the gay rights movement, there was sexism. And in the women's rights movement, there was homophobia. So you were kind of really caught between these two things. But the majority end up in the women's rights movement. And I think that's so important. And for me as a teacher, that's really what I want to teach young people. I want them to understand why that is. And I think the reason why I really want people to read this workbook, especially young people, is that I think the way lesbianism is framed and the issues are framed would be so... I feel, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I'm 52. But it would be strange to them. Like, we just don't talk about it the way it was talked about when I came out in 1990. So, and I've been tweeting, so I'm going to bring Nim back in here now. So I've been tweeting, what some of you may have seen them, what's capitalism got to do with lesbianism, and things of that nature. So, okay. Now this is where things get a little, I have to just change the stream. And so that requires, let's see. Well, that's one way to do it, but that's not the way I want to do it. Sorry, everybody. Just give me a minute here. Source, share screen. Okay, we'll just go with this for now until I can. I had it working just beautifully. What you can see in the background there is my screen saver, which is my daughter. Oh, there you go. That's my daughter. And I don't really want that there. So let's see if I go. Oh, there you go. I just scroll like that. So I move that out of the way. Oh, damn it. It's tricky because you have your. It's too much. It's too much. Okay. I think you're more or less. Oh, that's a little too close. There we go. There we go. How's that, Nim? Well, thank you so much, Nim, for joining us. Now, people who've just are just popping in now, in the comments section, please tell us where you're coming in from, where you're tuning in from. And if you have any comments or questions as we go along, please ask them. We want to hear from you. And Nim, where are you? Where are we reaching you? And you've been living there how long now? Yeah, and you moved there from East. Well, was that neighborhood still East Van or outside of East Van? Kingsway? What was that neighborhood called? Okay, just hang up there for a second because Nancy is telling me that they can't hear you. And this is because there's just too many, so I can hear you. But why why is it not recording output? So let me just go with me. Built-in output. Let's see. Okay, yeah. Oh, now I'm hearing myself really loud. Sorry. This is okay. I've got my mic on. No, it's not you, Nim. It's not you. It's because I'm using Zoom now. And okay, thanks everybody for your patience. Can you just say something now, Nim, and if people can't hear you, I will try and go about this another way. Let's see. I don't know. Sorry, because there is a 10-second delay. So did anybody hear Nim there? Um, I think what I might do. I wonder if this. So I'm just trying to work with. Everybody's Zooming these days, but this program is really set up for. I'm getting Elise, but not Nim. Okay, this program is really set up for. So I'm gonna stop the share. Can't hear ya. Okay, I'm stopping the share, and then I'm gonna try to just. Oh dear God, this is stressful. I know everybody, you can't hear. Okay, I'm trying to figure it out. Thank you. Thank you for letting me know. So sorry. Okay. Sound. No, those are sound effects. Erg. No, don't want to do that. You stop. Don't know why that's happening. Okay. Oh goodness. There's my mic, my microphone, sound effects. I'm gonna mute that. I just don't see what's different from previous weeks. Just do you know any poems off by heart that you could just recite? And so I'm gonna click around and see if I can. Built-in microphone, yeah. Yeah, that you could just like recite, and if so, as soon as anybody hears Nim's voice, you chime in and let me know that I've clicked the right thing. Can anybody hear yet? No, still not hearing. Oh, okay, not that button. Not that button. Do I have mute on? Built-in speaker, built-in microphone. Oh my goodness. I'm so terribly sorry, everybody. Audio settings. Test speaker, microphone. Me, I'm fine. Yeah, no, Nim is not muted because I can hear her. So the problem is, I'm bringing her in through my program to send her out, and for some reason her audio is not. And I just want everybody to know I am a professional. And we do troubleshoot before these things, but I haven't had this particular problem before, so I didn't troubleshoot for. I know, so there must be some new function I've turned on, or that has been turned on. Like I'm checking everything, and everything is select a speaker, built-in output. So Ecamm Live audio app. Oh, I bet this works now. Okay, you try now. You
Okay,
try now.
you can begin.
Oh, oh, I'm seeing,
Can people hear me now?
give it a 10-second delay from us to them. Oh, I am seeing, now I just have to remember for next week what we did. I
10
think people,
seconds
yeah,
is a
because I'm seeing
long
system
delay.
audio and you're coming through now.
Oh,
What,
excellent.
what
I've
did
got a
I,
big thing on my screen saying that you're recording this meeting, so I'll have to hit continue so that
oh,
I can see something besides
okay.
that notice.
Okay, dear God, everybody. Okay, I have no idea. I do no recollection of what I did to change that.
It's something
I
about
clicked on one
output.
of a cajillion different things. Oh, you know what it was? Not that
What?
anybody cares, but it was a setting in Zoom. Yeah. So thank you, everybody. Okay. So, yes. Okay. Everybody's happy. Okay. Phew. Good. I hope we didn't lose too many people. Oh, dear goodness. Okay. Now let me make sure. So everybody can see. Everybody can see Nim. Okay. Yeah, I can hear now, but not very loud. So please speak up, Nim. Okay. Well, I'm. So yeah, yeah. You're. It's just you're a little bit away from your thing. So
I can pull my
there.
mic
That's
closer if you
that.
can adjust the camera thingy. Is that
Yeah.
bad?
I think that that is better. I can hear you better too. Okay.
Nobody has ever said I had a quiet voice.
Me too. Yes. Okay.
Should I
Yes.
start over?
Oh my dear goodness. Oh, yes. I'm so sorry
Ready?
and thank you. Go
Okay,
ahead.
good.
Go.
Okay. I am speaking to you from the traditional territories of the Comox and Pentlatch people. And in settler society, that would be known as Hornby Island. I'm in my living room. And the other thing I need to tell you is that I am in the middle of a 24-hour birdathon. It's a fundraiser for our local conservancy. And so if all of a sudden I whip my head to the side and I'm transfixed on the window, it's because I've seen some new bird flying by, but I'll try not to do that. I'll try to stay focused on the task at hand.
Okay. Uh Please do.
I'll
No,
do
I
my
think
best here.
it'll be just fine. Okay, so I just want to remind everybody that if you tell us where you're, and this is the last time I'll do it, I promise. If you tell us where you're tuning in from, we have a prize that you may win. But you have to tell us where you're tuning in from. Okay, so can you start, Nim, by telling us? I always like to start by asking people when and where they were born. If you like, tell us a little bit about the circumstances that you were born, the context in which you were raised, and can you tell us when you know your coming out story, however you like to tell it?
Sure. I was born at Vancouver General Hospital in February 1952. My mother swears they gave her heroin for the birth, and it was the most wonderful experience of her life. There you go. Um, my family moved around a great deal as a child, so I lived in all sorts of places all over BC. My mom and dad were both communists, and they experienced a lot of a lot of oppression. It was a hard time for communists. So my dad lost his jobs regularly. We moved somewhere else, and my dad also had an extremely severe alcohol problem, so that didn't help. So we ended up in Winnipeg, where my mom had come from, and lived there through my 12 years of schooling. So,
And tell us when you
oh,
came
my
out.
coming out story.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So I came back to Vancouver because Vancouver had been sort of a mythical place in my family. I came out here to go to UBC, which I went to for a very short time, and then I got mononucleosis, and then I had anyhow. I didn't last at UBC for very long, but I was in Vancouver, and I went to the first women's studies course that was offered at UBC in 71, 71, I think. And it was not a credit course, but it was very powerful for me. And I ended up after that working at the on a oh LIP grant on the first it was a women's health project at a place called Women's Place in the summer of 72. And it was the forerunner for the Women's Health Collective. So there I was at Women's Place working on this grant, doing women's health survey things. And on the top floor of the old house on Broadway was the Lesbian Resource Center. So there were lesbians in the Lesbian Resource Center, and they were the first lesbians they weren't the first lesbians I had met by any means, but they were the first lesbians I had met that said they were lesbians. And me and my best buddy Dougal, who was also working on the Women's Health Survey, we would go out to lunch every day, and we would sit across the table in the little greasy spoon cafes. We would gaze into each other's eyes, and we would talk about how we weren't lesbians, because the women who were lesbians, they knew they were lesbians, and we didn't know we were lesbians, and so therefore we weren't lesbians. And we did this every day all summer while we were madly in love. But so then Dougal and I went off to England. No, somewhere in there. We went on a camping trip to China Beach, where I met a woman who had recently moved to Vancouver from New York, where not only had she been part of the a women's building occupation, an occupation of a building to become a women's building, she sat on a log on China Beach, and she talked about the theoretical framework that was coming out of the Gay Liberation Front in New York. I had never heard a theoretical framework about anything to do with gay people, lesbian. Like, this was completely new, and it was totally exciting. And Dougal and I then went off to England in the fall, and we ended up moving into we were invited in Vancouver to move into a collective house called Rise. But we decided we had to flee the country because the other women who were setting up Rise, they were lesbians, and we weren't lesbians. So we fled the country to England, and we ended up in a collective women's household. And it was like several days after we moved into this house, we realized that all the other women in the house were lesbians. So one thing led to another, and I became involved with my first woman lover, whose name was Chris, who was a woman from London who lived in the house. And then a couple of months later, I was very in love. It was very overwhelming. It was totally just exquisitely wonderful. And a couple of months later, Chris took up with Dougal, which was really a lot less wonderful. And it went on like that but it was a great time to come out, because it was just the very early second wave women's movement. It was the very early GLF, Gay Liberation Front, and the saying was, feminism is the theory, lesbianism is the practice. And so everybody thought it was wonderful to come out, for women to come. Not everybody, I mean, other lesbians and other gay men and that, but it was a great time to come out, because if you wore a GLF button and you were on the subway in London and somebody else was on the subway with a GLF button, you'd hug each other, and we went to demonstrations, and we disrupted things, and we had a kiss in. It was a wonderful time to come out. It wasn't hard at all. So I was very, very lucky in my coming
out. That's okay. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. But I'm going to push back a little bit on that, because one of the things, okay, I'm going to go to this thing. I don't think you can see it now, but one of the things I'm posting is from your book, your workshop book. And we'll get to how those workshops got set up in a minute. But that list of myths, did you have a chance to look at that? I emailed you that clip. So it says, Lesbians are obsessed with sex. Lesbians are washroom invaders. Lesbians are wildly promiscuous. They lie in wait for any woman who crosses their path. They're child molesters. They're insanely jealous and possessive and beat each other up with broken beer bottles. Lesbians lead romantic sexual lives and do nothing but make love. Oh, I wish. And lesbians want the pleasures of sexual activity without paying the price. And then in brackets, right. Or right. I think that's like eye rolling right. So, okay, before you respond to that, if any of you out there, I know a lot of you will be familiar with these, but if any of you have like don't get it because it's not part of your experience of being a lesbian, put a question in. Which one of these surprises you? Okay? If any of these surprise you, which one surprises you? I really want to know. I'm always trying to bridge the generational divide and understand for me where my students are at, but that's part of what we're trying to do here is create a conversations across the generations. So I am sure, I don't doubt for a moment that it was a very exciting time to come out and wonderful. But this was also part. Oh, that's just me. I want to go back to you. Hold on. Arg. Let's see. Oh, there we go. There you are. um, tell me about those myths.
Well, let me context the myths by saying they were the workshop that we created to try and the educational workshop that we created. That was the myths part was an integral part of that workshop because um, everybody had grown up in a society where they learned we were trying to be educational tactful, so we called them myths. Really, they were lies. They were lies about what it meant to be a woman. They're lies about what it meant to be a lesbian. They were lies, and so we would go through all those lies and talk about them and get people to generate any others that we hadn't thought of as a way to demystify them, as a way to contradict them. So, and yeah, all of those were true. It's not like I hadn't heard those myself, which was one of the reasons why I had crossed paths with so many lesbians in Winnipeg, but we never discussed it or mentioned it, or it was like it was very secret, very hidden, very shameful, very stigmatized. So my coming out time was a particular historical moment, and I was in London. I wasn't in Winnipeg. I wasn't with my family. I wasn't with the kids I went to school with. Like it was there was a lot of reasons why it was pretty exquisitely lovely and not difficult or stressful. But those and I was just lucky that even though in my head I knew all those myths were true, I actually didn't. I had hit feminism before I identified as a lesbian, and so I just thought that it was. They didn't stop me in my coming out time, and I didn't take them in personally at the time.
Right.
I did. I was lucky.
Yeah.
Even though all through high school I was in love with other women and had sexual feelings. I'm just the kind. I still am. I'm sure. I was just the kind of person that whatever I felt was just totally okay and normal. And so I just never crossed my mind that there was anything. I thought everybody had sexual fantasies about women. I just never. It just never entered into my consciousness that I was in any way unusual or and that's not true for most women of my generation who came out as lesbians. They had if they had those feelings about women as younger when they were in high school, etc. It was very difficult. I just skated over the whole thing obliviously.
Do you think you said that I mean, this might be a huge leap, and I'm sorry if it is, but you said your parents were communists. Do you think that, presumably then they sort of questioned everything? So do you think being raised in that environment impacted your sexuality, like your way you understood sexuality, or are those two things so separate and far apart that there's
Well, I certainly knew stories from my mother. My father's alcoholism was so far advanced that he was really not speaking much in my growing up years. But my mother knew gay men. I mean, she told stories about gay men that she knew, and it was
Mm,
and her stories were about what a hard life it was. How difficult it was, It wasn't hateful. It was, it was pitying rather than hateful. Um, and I know when I came out to my family, which I did as soon as I identified as a lesbian, I knew that they were not going to be able to disown me or be horrible because I had a good political argument for how gay people and lesbians were oppressed, and they couldn't dare be, they had to, they had to, as political people, they couldn't be too weird about it. Whatever they might personally feel, they had a political obligation. So that was, that made it easier too.
That's a great story. I like that story. So let's talk about how this amazing book, Stepping Out of Line, came to be. And I do have to say that I took note when I was reading the acknowledgments of how many of the women who have been part of this project were part of that book. So it's a tight community in a way, but I also like to see it as a community that's like long lasting, right? It has this really strong and powerful life, and all of you are still so, or so many of you at least, are still so connected and still so active and vibrant in your lives. So um, I think that says a lot. Yeah, and Janine Janine Colley is agreeing. Oh, sorry, I think she was agreeing about Cameron's book. Anyways, I think that's Donna Lee. That's Telling 50. I facilitated the workshop for women in southern parts of BC, thanks to NIM. That's the name is Telling 50, but I think, yeah, that's Donna Lee there.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, yeah. So tell us how this workbook came to be.
Well, I haven't paid much attention to it for 40 years or so, but since you were going to interview me, I hauled out one of my old copies, and I looked through it because just to make sure I remembered what was in it. And I'm really echoing what really struck me was how many voices are present in it. Not just the acknowledgments, but the writings in the Organizing for Change section come from a, a really wide range of women that the three of us were somehow connected to. And so it really, I think of it as a book that I worked on, and Yvonne and Yvette and I did together. But really, when I look back on it, it very much was an expression of the lesbian feminist community in Vancouver and British Columbia at that time, way more than any kind of individual um, effort or individual voice. And it didn't come out of an individual, and it didn't spread. How it happened was that a new feminist organization, a coalition of feminist groups called the British Columbia Federation of Women, was formed, and after after the first BCFW convention, where some lesbians noted that there was no overt acknowledgement of lesbian rights or lesbians or anything, the a group called Lesbian Caucus formed and began. Well, we were all the women who formed caucus were coming out of a broader political spectrum, where a caucus was a group within an organization that that worked to push the organization in some kind of direction. So the caucus was set up to try and encourage the overall British Columbia Federation of Women to take public stance supporting lesbian rights. So this was the mid 70s, 74, 75, 76, that range. And I got involved, and Yvette got involved, and Yvonne got involved quite early on in that. And we were part of the British Columbia Federation of Women Standing Committee. I can't, I'm almost 70. My memory is not so good. I think Yvette was the lower mainland regional rep, and I was the Fraser Valley regional rep. I don't know what Yvonne was, but anyhow, we ended up, a bunch of us got to go to standing committee meetings. And at those standing committee meetings, very early, the first thing that happened was that we wrote articles for the BCFW newspaper. And not we, me personally, but we and also other lesbians who were part of BCFW and were actually editing the newspaper. Nancy, Nancy and Cynthia. So there were articles in the newspaper about lesbians and lesbian rights, and we went to a standing committee meeting, and women who were delegates, who were regional reps from other parts of the province, and were heterosexual women and lived in small and often conservative communities across BC, were very, very, very distraught by these newspapers because they were supposed to, as BCFW region reps, they're supposed to distribute them amongst their communities, and they were very they so we experienced some very intense verbal homophobia. Um, my memory is a woman telling us that we were green slime and we should go back in the gutter from whence we the gutter that we came from, and that kind of comment. And none of us had ever really expected that. It was so we were. It was so the women and women were saying, I just took those newspapers and I threw them in the garbage because they were garbage. So there was homophobia within the overall coalition of feminist groups in British Columbia, and we were very hurt, and we were very angered because we really did see ourselves as feminists, and we really did see ourselves as connected to and part of overall movement for the liberation of all women. So we organized as quite intensely to try and push for and pass policy supporting lesbian rights within BCFW, and we by this time caucus was getting smaller and smaller because this fight not wasn't pleasant. It just really was. It was hard. It was a hard fight. So those of us that were left decided that what we needed to do was educate our sisters. We needed to educate the members groups of BCFW, because if they just understood, of course they would support lesbian rights, and of course they would see that the stigmatization of lesbians was a patriarchal and capitalist tactic to ensure appropriate women's behavior, and that the only way, or not the only way, but one really powerful way to fight that limitation on what was appropriate for women to, or what women were able to do in the world, was to fight the stigmatization of inappropriate female behavior that was labeled as lesbian behavior. And so it made total sense to us. We thought that other women would, they would understand that, absolutely. So we started doing educational workshops, and we did get the policy passed at the BCFW convention, and we started doing workshops. First workshops were for BCFW member groups, and then I guess as word spread, we started getting asked to do workshops for college classes and high schools and social service agencies, and just a range of groups, and it became clear to us that not only did the women's movement need to understand what was not only did the women's movement need to fight for lesbian rights, but that the whole society needed to fight for lesbian rights. But there was only by this time three or four. There weren't very many of us doing the workshops, so we decided we would create a little 30-page Gestetner booklet telling other women how they could do the workshops so they could go and do them. And so we tried that, and then we gave it to people to read, and they said, "Oh, you should make it a book." And so then we put more things in it, and then it took forever. It took forever, and it took the whole community, and we finally ended up with a book, but it was long and arduous. Not because we were conflicted about it, just because making a book that tries to be accurate but all encompassing at the same time. And every time we do a workshop, we'd learn something new that had to go in there, or we'd read something. It just went on forever. So at some point, we just stopped, But even though we knew it was inadequate, we knew it wasn't all encompassing, we just had to stop. So it
um,
was published when, 86, 87? I mean, it took a
85. I think
long
85. Yeah.
time.
um, so I want to, speaking of, systemic oppression, I want to pull out this quote on capitalism, and just talk a little bit about that. Um, so I know you can't see it, so I'll read it to you, Nim. So it says, so this is from the book. Everybody has equal opportunity to become rich, famous, and powerful. Being rich, famous, and powerful is what everybody wants. Those are the most important things in life. Success or failure in life depends on individual hard work, talent, and luck. Women don't want to be rich, famous, or powerful. Women want to be loved, to be wives, and to have children. Sorry, I should have. I don't have the page number. On some of them, I wrote down the page number, but I didn't. Um, so this is kind of the logic of individualism and capitalism, right? So lesbians are not women because they don't want to be wives and mothers. Lesbians are, quote, weird, sick, unnatural, and scary. Lesbianism is a sexual pastime. Lesbians want to be men tough, unemotional, violent, sexually aggressive. Lesbianism has individual causes, unhappy childhood, etc. And finally, lesbians should not flaunt themselves. So you identify these in these workbook as all products of individualism / capitalism. Can you talk a little bit about that? The connections you guys were making? Oh, that's funny. Your sound's gone again. Hold on a minute. I wonder if it has to do with that's so weird. Let's see. Why? Just a second. Okay. Now you're there, but now I can't hear you. What did I do? Oh, now I can hear you.
Okay.
Strange. Okay, go ahead. So yeah, so tell me, all those sort of stereotypes, which probably most of them are still more or less true. They exist in some form or another. So why did your generation connect those with capitalism, for example?
Well, I don't know. Well, so let me context that in the workshop. This is the part where we're talking about the explanation for the oppression of lesbians. And we intro it by saying, we talk about how women are taught that theory is not for us, that we're, emotional nurturers, we're not interested in theory, but that the workshop facilitators, are saying that everybody has some kind of what I would now call worldview, but back then we didn't have the word worldview. All of us have some kind of theoretical explanation that explains the world to us, that explains how the world is the way it is. And then we go through a whole bunch of them. And we start with individual capitalism because we thought it was probably the dominant one. But we also do Christianity, biology, psychiatry, socialism, gay rights. I mean, we go through a whole bunch of sort of
Yeah.
theoretical perspectives. And in a way, it's a follow up on the myths section, but it's just moving from an individual mythology beliefs to a theoretical worldview perspective mythology beliefs. So yeah, we were just really listing what we thought were the ways that different theoretical perspectives explained the world and saw women and lesbians. So that list that you read was what we thought were mainstream ideas about women, the world, and lesbians. So that's and we you wouldn't we don't say it anywhere in here, but we were, as feminists, we were way more in the socialist feminist camp
Mm.
than we were in any other feminist camp. And we were theorists. The people that ended up in caucus were a small bunch of women that actually liked theory. And so the most work we did in our meetings was try to figure out theoretical linkages and theoretical perspectives and what we did not agree with in other feminist theoretical perspectives and other lesbian theoretical perspectives. So we really were theorists. And so I don't know that anybody in the workshops really enjoyed this part of the workshop, but the theory part was our passion. Actually, we
Mm,
loved the theory part, and
mm,
we did believe. Now, this is a gross simplification, but we did believe that the reason why lesbians and gay men were the primary reason why lesbians and gay men were oppressed was because we challenged gender roles,
mm,
and that the challenge of gender roles, um, if successful, if gender roles were successfully challenged, it would destabilize patriarchy, and it would bring down capitalism. That gender roles and capitalism were inextricably linked, and that the challenge to destroy gender roles would destroy capitalism. And so to promote the humanity and rights of lesbians and gay men would link up. It would destroy capitalism. We were wrong, Elise. We were wrong. But we did believe that, and you can. That's the underlying theoretical perspective.
oh, that's so funny. Well, I mean, yeah, yes, you were wrong, but no, you weren't wrong. I mean, so this is thinking about what's happening with COVID right now.
Yeah.
A lot of people are saying, feminists are saying that, we're all back to the 1950s now. I mean, now that everybody's at home working, women are, what has actually really changed? And, so one of the other hats I wear is I'm the president of Academic Women here at SFU, and we just did a survey of our members, and 30% of our members responded, which is actually a very high response rate for these kinds of things. And we only send it out for 24 hours. And there's a gross proportion of women are reporting that their teaching responsibilities are increased and their research and productivity is massively decreased. And we had an online discussion about it. And, it's all the same old issues, right? So, I mean, they are related. And what's really interesting to me, like I've lived through, especially as an academic, like then Judith, so post this conversation, Judith Butler comes along, gender is performative, it's a copy without an original, and the conversation moves in a different direction.
Yeah.
And that's where we're at now. And I do think, I mean, I need to give this more thought, but I do think something's been lost. I think a lot's been gained for sure. And it's always interesting to think about old things in a new way. I'm not against that. In fact, I'm all for that. But I do think though that something's really been lost. Yeah, I do think something's been lost. So I understand what you're saying. But anyways, so we could go on
And
about
let me
this.
be clear,
Yes,
I am
yes.
not. I still think that gender and capitalism are very linked.
Okay,
But
okay.
what all I'm saying is that we now live in a much more accepting society of queer people. Like we can get married.
Oh,
It's all, well, it's not all good, but it's a lot better than it was. We made enormous progress in legal and social and etc. rights for queer people in Canada. And capitalism and gender just have sort of swept us, like we're right in there as mainstream consumers, which is all capitalism cares
yeah,
about. So the our belief back then that lesbian and gay rights would actually destabilize either gender or capitalism, that was what was wrong.
yeah, yeah.
That
Well,
was what was the
right, right,
nonsense
right.
that turned out to be true.
Right, right. My apologies to people for me playing around with the screen here. Just something happened and then I had to get things back. So it's just a little bit of movement, but we can all see and hear you. So I just want to apologize to people for you touch things inadvertently and well, you touch things inadvertently and things happen. I think there's a metaphor in there. Okay, I want to. So one of the things that I really love, and I think shaped me as a scholar, and that's what this project, this work that we're doing here is all about, is the power of story and how our own lives are theory, right? I just need to fix this because it's showing more of me than you, and that's just not right. But it won't go. What are you doing? I'm gonna put on speaker view now. It's just you. Oh damn it! This thing is just so hard to manage. Okay, I just have to go like this. There, it reduces the screen a little bit. Oh my god! Give it time. I still have faith in the power of the subversive. Says. And Judith Quinlan says capitalism has always been a patriarchal phenomenon. Is it possible to not be patriarchal? I think not. Yes, Judith.
Judith Quinlan.
Yeah. Yeah. And Zed says, give it, I don't know if I put this up already. Give it more time. I still have faith in the power of the subversive. Yeah. Yes to that one too. Okay. So one of the things I really love, I mean, you talked a little bit about this at the beginning, but one of the things that I really loved, and I'm just going to put up one final clip. So let me take that down and then just go like this. So it appears right at the beginning of the section where you start telling stories. And it's Wendy, a quote from Wendy. What is a lesbian? Oh, I know why I picked this one. So one of the things that I've asked a lot of the women who participated in this project is, do you see your lesbianism as connected to your feminism? And everyone has said, no, not really, which shocks me because when I came out, this is exactly the idea of lesbianism I discovered. Like when I came out, it was purely for sexual reasons, but I was also feminist in my thinking, although I hadn't yet discovered feminism. And then when I discovered this idea, so I'll tell you, Wendy says, what is a lesbian? A woman who is thoroughly independent. Even if you have a lover, you don't have to cling. You work together. You're strong emotionally and physically. If you can't do something, you're not afraid to ask your friends. You're aware of yourself and you're not going to put on a mask. And so for me, that was so sexy. Like that was like this kind of empowerment that was associated with not just my sexual desire, because my own sexual desire could be complicated by my Christian upbringing, what's right and wrong, just social mores and so on. But this like totally gave me permission to live in my body, own my body, kind of to use the more gay liberation language, like fuck who I want when I want kind of thing. And that was empowering, you could liberate yourself in that way. And for women, it had a particular meaning because we really, men felt that they had free access to our bodies. And Nick says my lesbianism and feminism were and are inseparable. But did I ask you? No, I didn't interview you. That's why, Nick. So I'm glad you say that. But it's a tough one because partly I think so. This is a little bit of, and I know I'm going on a little side ramble here, but I think this is a little bit of the problem of memory. Like if I had that quote in hand when I asked that question, I bet people would have answered the question differently. Like I think we're so, if I can say this, we're so old now that all those values, like they're just so internalized as part of who we are. So I suspect, this is my theory, but I suspect like folks have kind of maybe forgotten that. I don't know. I don't want to speak for them. But anyways, I was just surprised because to me, that quote by Wendy really captured my own excitement, which, as I say, like, yes, it was about political and yes, it was about my social position in the world as a woman, but it was incredibly hot and sexy to have this idea that we are strong and we can build things and we don't need men and we can be independent and relate to each other equally and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, to me, that was like super hot and quite arousing. You know what I'm talking about? Nem, do you know anything about that?
Well, I mean, even at the time, yes, we believed that at the time. We did believe. We believed that we could build anything. We could have wonderful, hot sexual relationships. Some of us believed we could have it with many people at the same time. We believed we could, we believed we could have wonderful lives. We could change the world, and we did believe that. And what was also true is that I now would call them aspirational statements. Right? that
Okay.
that there was in the lesbian feminist community, in caucus, in our lives, there was a lot of pain.
Yeah.
We were not healing from our childhood sexual abuse yet. We were drinking, we were
Yeah.
drugging, we were, it might be aspirational that we could have sex with lots of women and it would all be fine and wonderful, but we were actually really badly hurting each other by not doing that in any kind of ethical or clear or um, it was not. There was quite a gap, at least amongst my circles, between what we believed should be possible and what the the hard places in our lives were. And that's reflected in this book. Like, this book, while we talk about internalized depression and fighting internalized depression, and we talk about alcoholism, and we we do talk about a lot of things, we're still more towards that. um we can overcome anything, we can change the world. And so I look back and there's a certain amount of sadness,
Oh.
because we did believe that so very, very strongly. And in lots and lots and lots of ways, it's absolutely, it's not like I want to say women can't be strong, lesbians aren't strong, but it's more complicated. Maybe because I'm almost 70. And there's a whole lot of things I cannot do with my body and my emotions and my, like, we were young. We were really young, and we were strong, and we were energetic, and we could work all day and party all night and have sex. We could do those things and then have intense theoretical discussions. And that was the time of our lives and the time of the world, and
Yeah.
it was a pretty great time, but there was a lot of pain too.
Nem, you're just full of contradictions.
I like context on these.
And you also smoked. One of the things that
Oh
really,
wow! Look at those pictures.
but also, right at the beginning, when you talk about setting up the workshop, the very first thing is set up rules about when smoking breaks will happen and for how long. I'm like,
Yeah, right.
this really dates it.
There are many things that dated. It's good work, but it was a long time ago.
No, it's wonderful. I love it. I mean, yeah, it's just great, right? I was in workshops like that. So one of the things I've been asking people, well, actually, before I do that, I'm just going to show one other thing here. So let's see if I can find.
That's my phone.
That's okay. Don't worry about it. So I'm sharing on my screen this quote. This is page 65. I did write the page number down for this. And it's about what feminism envisions. And this is my segue to my last question to you. My last question to each guest has been, what did feminism, being a lesbian and being a feminist, teach you? What skill or quality or characteristic did you gain in that period that's helping you survive this really challenging moment in our history? And I want to ask you, Nim, to answer that very personally. But I wanted to first show this quote because I think it's a reminder of what I think feminism has to offer us. And when we look at this, I think there's still a lot to be learned from the ideology, the ideals that it laid out. It says feminism envisions a society in which respect for the uniqueness of each individual and concern for each person's well-being is foremost. And I mean, I can't think of anything that is more appropriate for this moment. In an ideal feminist society, all productive work would have equal value, and service and maintenance tasks would be shared. All people would be responsible for themselves and would be able to share in nurturing others. And again, like those are just things that are so alive for us right now. And then it talks about styles of leadership, which is so interesting. And I guess one of the things I wanted to mention too is that you guys lived by, you and your team. I don't know what the word. You and your collective. You live by these values. So you make it very clear in your workbook that none of you earned any kind of profit, that you charged enough to cover your expenses. People billeted you. There was probably a lot of community effort to bring you in and do these workshops. And I think if I understood correctly, anything you earned over and above your costs, you would donate to local community organizations. So I think that really speaks. It's interesting because everything now seems to be about monetization, and and it's very interesting to be doing this live stream and sort of trying to research about how to like do social media and stuff, because it's all about like selling products and monetizing and stuff. And it's just kind of interesting that the context and how normative I think that's come. But I would really like to see that kind of not-for-profit work become normative again. So anyways, just shifting gears from that, what for you, what would you say personally is helping you through this time?
Well, I think I'm extremely lucky in this time. I live in uh, I'm not in the city. I'm out on a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful island where there's not a whole lot of population. So I can go out and walk and be outside. I have an acre of land that requires intense work, so I can keep myself busy nonstop. Like I'm in a great place. I am in a loving relationship with the woman that told me about the GLF theory in 1972. Um, so I'm not alone in this. And I have a nice, lovely little dog. So I go for, and I'm just so lucky. And I'm old, so I'm retired, so I have a pension. So I don't. This is not having a financial impact on me. And Hornby Island, the demographic here skews towards the older end of the spectrum. So, on the whole, everybody I know is being really, really careful because we're all in a vulnerable age group. So, how would feminism affect how I'm being now? Well, just you know, I, that I'm pretty sure I wrote that paragraph you just read. I did a lot of the writing on the parts that are credited just because I ended up being the person that was doing a lot of the writing at the end. And those are values that I still hold.
Yeah.
I do think that would be a world to live in. I believe in that. And my personal life, both my work life and my personal life, are very shaped by those values. Um, they just are. I spent After we did all those workshops, I spent the rest of my working life in mostly in the BC College and Institute system, in educational roles, um, teaching and working with adults, and I tended to get into work roles where I could bring my social justice values into my work, and that was a good thing. And I've always uh, you know all of the work I've done in my life, very little of it shows as individual work. I do most of my work, or I, yeah, that's just who I turned out. How feminism and those values shaped me was to be with, work with other people and not take individual credit and etc. Like take collective credit for projects that would be done. The other thing that really the workbook and that work and that what really helped me is, after I had, when I started working, I was really busy, and I didn't pay much attention to feminism or anything else for quite a long time. And then I ended up going to graduate school late. Like, I was in my 50s when I went to graduate school. And what got me through graduate school, that got me through my master's and my doctorate, was feminist theory. And it was feminist theory, feminist research methodology that came directly out of the theoretical perspective. Now, of course, I read what was been written, but that was a huge gift to me, that I didn't go into graduate school without a theoretical perspective. I had a theoretical, I knew what theory was. I could read theory. I had a framework for assessing what I could read and what I did read and what was new. And that was an enormous gift. I don't know how I would have gotten through that without that theoretical standing place. So yeah, hugely influential in my life. Not so much in the pandemic. It's pretty much gardening and dog walking.
That's really, I mean, I'm so happy for you. I know how beautiful this coast is, and yeah, I'm really happy for you. And thank you so much for coming to join us here today. It's been such a pleasure. I really yeah, this is such an important history. I say this every week, but honestly, like, I just yeah, it's so rich. It's so rich, and I'm so excited to be able to learn more about it and share it with people. I wanted to let folks know that next week we'll be talking with Karen Wells, who's the author of the new book on the abortion caravan, another really yeah, important piece of Vancouver history. And we're going to bring back Ellen Woodsworth, who was a previous guest on the show, but she was involved in that action, to talk about the book and the action. And what I want to really explore next week is, so again, I often think about things like from the perspective of my students. So why would I ask my students, why would lesbians be involved in pro-choice movement, since presumably most of them were not having had heterosexual sex? And the answer is because bodily autonomy was just so important. I mean, it's not just about actually the right to have access to abortion. It's about the right to choose. It's about the right to have control over your body. And our sexuality is, especially back in the 1970s, it's still today, of course, but so much more then, just didn't belong to us. So for me, I think that's the strong connection, and that's something that I hope to explore next week, and again, perhaps in future weeks, depending on how an invitation I sent out gets replied. And we also have some other upcoming guests that are pretty exciting. Rebel Dykes is an organization in the UK. They're going to be on a show soon, and I'm back and forth in conversation with the creator of a Facebook page called Butch Appetit, as in, Bon Appetit, but Butch Appetit. So I want to do at least one show on butches because I love butches, but that means I also have to do a show on femmes because, equality. And I don't really love femmes that much. I mean, don't take that the wrong way. I mean, like, I love butches. And this is my show. I get to talk about things I like to talk about. I also saw Rebecca.
You need to get the Butch Bake Off.
The Butch Bake Off.
The Butch Bake Off in Vancouver was a wonderful event.
Okay. I have to learn more about that.
Butch Bake Off.
I have to learn more about that. But I'm telling you, Vancouver is the city of, like, I do want to say, though, now I feel really bad about saying that about femmes because, part of me is, I'm part femme. This is a city of very beautiful femmes. Like, this is the femme city, I think, Vancouver. There's some pretty stunning women out there. And I'm not going to name names, but you know who you are. And I love it. I'm just thinking one of the ways I want to frame the conversation is there was a piece that came out, I think, in the New York Times a little while ago, and about butches. And I never read the piece because, who's got time? But there was a comment that somebody made about the erasure of femmes, and it was a femme saying, don't we make you, like, don't we make you butches? Do you exist without us? And I thought, yeah, like, That's a fucking awesome way to frame it, and it's a really good question. So maybe I'll dig through my Facebook, find out who that was, and ask them to come in and talk, because I think those are great conversations. Oh, Nora talked about the Butch Bake Off last week. That's right. It was ringing a bell. Okay, I am just going to show a couple more slides here. Folks are saying thank you to you, Nim. So I want to make sure you know that. People are so grateful for your story. Oh, I don't have my last. I don't know what happened to my last slides. Well, we shan't worry about those final slides. Bring the Butch Bake Off back, says Stacy. Yeah, okay. Well, I will do some investigation. I will talk to Nora again and get her to remind me. And I'm sure all you folks out there will remind me. Normally I have a slide at the end that gives you all the website information. You don't need that. You're good to go. So yeah, that's it. I'm going to sign off and say, come back next week. We have more lesbian fun over the lunch hour. Bring your friends, tell your friends. Oh, and the winner. Ha ha ha. This is someone who I met a few years ago. So I just want you to see, I had an idea for who would win. This is my program notes. And it was 5th person to say where they are tuning in from. And that was Gitta, who is in Nelson. I don't know if she's still listening, but I can get in touch with her. If you are still listening, Gitta, please send me by email your mailing address. And if you would like it inscribed to you or to someone else, because, you could give it as a gift. I know you're listening with 2 other people, but today I just have 1 copy to give away, so you'll have to fight over it. Okay. Thank you one more time. Here we go. I'm bringing you back in. There we go. We can see you. Yes. Zed says thank you both. Bet says lovely to see you, Nim. Great to see everybody. I love our gatherings. I think one week we should do it as a group gathering so I can see all of you, because there's a lot of you are becoming regulars. So go get the birds, Nim. Go get the birds.
Hey, thank you.
Thanks, everybody. See you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.